A lot of people find the hardest part about traveling to be the plane ride, but for my family, that's only the beginning. When we arrive in Los Angeles every summer, we get off the plane and head down towards immigration. This is where my father splits off from the rest of my family. You see, my mom was born in Armenia and then immigrated to the United States when she was about 5 years old. She then became a naturalized US citizen, and through this, my brother and I were able to attain our US passports at birth. My father, however, has an Iranian and British passport, and while it takes me, my mom, and my brother about 10 to 15 minutes to get through immigration, the wait on the other side for my father can be truly extensive. As we wait, we go to the conveyor belt and get our massive amounts of luggage to then turn and wait for our missing member. On a good day, it'll take an extra 10 to 15 minutes as my father is stuck behind a sea of foreigners who have absolutely no idea what they're doing. But sometimes the wait can be truly horrifying. We'll wait an extra 30 minutes to an hour just to get stamped for a recheck on the way out of the airport. My father owns property, has worked, and has even lived in the United States. However, his place of birth sends a red flag to the US. Life for my father wasn't always like this, however. He was born in Esfahan, Iran, which is about 4 hours away from the capital, Tehran. Life, according to him, was perfect. That was until the revolution, of course. In 1977, Iran went through a drastic religious revolution. It was the military versus the public. Guns and tanks were riddled throughout the streets, and this dangerous environment, combined with my father's Christian Armenian background, made his parents decide to send him to study in London for a year to have him return after the revolution had died down. Little did he know, the revolution would only intensify, and the road ahead of him would be truly turbulent. Contrary to today, in the 1970s, the Iranian passport was a very strong passport to have. As countries wanted to diversify and expand their culture, it wasn't very hard for my father to attain his visitor's visa in England. He stayed with another Armenian family in their home and was soon enrolled into a school in London, where learning English became his #1 priority. His education in Iran was excellent, and this would have translated to London. However, he was unable to demonstrate this understanding to his teachers. Life was going relatively well for my father, but that all ended after the Iranian hostage crisis. In 1979, Iranian protesters broke into the US embassy and began taking hostages. This put Iran under a very bad light. With the situation in Iran becoming more unstable, Iranians themselves began leaving the country, taking their massive amounts of wealth with them. As a result, Iran began cutting off all money from leaving the country, leaving my father with very limited funds. At this point, my father was also unable to return to Iran as they began drafting against their war with Iraq. This also sent 10 to 20% of Iran's affluent population to flee the country to either the US or Europe. Unable to return to Iran and stuck with very limited funds, my father was forced to work and study simultaneously. Making minimum wage at age 16 at a laundromat, my father was only ever able to afford a very tiny home. Unable to afford heating, he would take his studies to the library every day after school, where he would study until they kicked him out. He would then return home to what felt like a damp bed. Every morning, he would wake up and go to his local gym, at which he had a minimum membership to shower and clean up. Life would go on like this for my father for quite some time until he was finally able to attain his PhD in mechanical engineering. His combination of studying and renewal of his visa made him eligible for his British passport, which he then later received. Sadly, however, because of the war, he was unable to return to Iran for the funeral of his mother, who he hadn't seen since he initially departed. This war also crashed Iran's economy, as well as the exchange rate for the Iranian rial. In 1979, $1 was 77 rials. In 1994, this went up to 2,400 rials, and today is 42,000 rials for the single US dollar. This made hardworking Iranians, such as my grandfather's money, rendered useless. Regardless of all their struggles, Iranians such as my father, who voluntarily left Iran, are not refugees, nor do they want to be thought of as such. This is something I want to focus on. The definition of a refugee is someone who's been forced to leave their country to either escape persecution, war, or natural disaster. This was not the case for Iranians leaving Iran at the time. They worked hard like any other citizen and contributed to the economy of their adopted countries. For example, today, in the Silicon Valley alone, over 40 CEOs, including Dara Khosrowshahi, the CEO of Uber, are Iranians of my father's generation or descendants of that generation. In 2015, my father finally returned to Iran 26 years after his initial departure. He came back with many stories and this key, which belonged to my great-grandfather and has been in my family for generations. However, these recent travels to Iran have caused problems for their own for not only my father, but anyone traveling to Iran, regardless of purpose of visit or nationality. Regardless of all his struggles and all my father has been through, we still sometimes have to wait 30 minutes to an hour for my father to clear immigration. However, he doesn't see this as a bump in the road, but more as a glitch in the system. All of us mostly travel to the United States, and inevitably, some of us will be put in a line longer than others for a, quote, random check. As the US's immigration quite correctly scans the group of incoming people for a variety of reasons, maybe we can do the opposite. Maybe the key to this problem could be scanning that group of people for friendly faces. Maybe the key to this problem could be putting down prejudice and stereotypes and looking at the perspective of others. So, rather than being frustrated, be patient and understanding of both sides. Empathize and talk to the person next to you because that person might be someone like my dad with an incredible story to share. Maybe this key could be the key to unlocking our world to a more sophisticated and understanding society. Thank you.